Hey guys, thanks for tuning into Second Son Woodworks. Today I'm going to be showing you how I built a wood-fired brick pizza oven on my patio. I had to break this video up into 3 different parts, so this is the first part. Let's get started! The very first step in this project was to line up the cinder blocks and the cement pavers in a way that I could envision where they would be sitting once the oven was actually built. In this first step, I actually didn't use any adhesive on any of the pieces of cement, but I just wanted to line them up to kind of see where they would be sitting once I actually started to build the oven up. As you can see, this took a little bit of try and fail when it came to the bricks to figure out how I'd be actually building the oven later on in the project. The nice thing about working with bricks, though, is that they're just square. It's like working with Legos, and you just want to make sure that your seams don't always line up so that there's a lot more firmness when it comes to the actual structure. After that, I went ahead and stacked all the bricks up and used my shovel to kind of cut out a line in the on the ground where the actual pavers would be sitting. Then I removed all the pavers and the cinder blocks and used my shovel to take out the soil that was underneath the pavers so that I could get a nice flat surface. Once I got the majority of the grass and soil out of the area where the pavers will be laying, I went ahead and got some sand and filled in the area with some sand so that the pavers could sink kind of into the sand. And then when I laid down the pavers, I made sure to level them out and make sure that it was a nice level surface. After that, I went ahead and cleaned up the space where the oven would be built, or the base of the oven would be built. And then I used a construction adhesive that adheres to cement to construct the base of the oven. And as you can see here, this essentially works just like a caulk gun, and you lay down a nice thick bead of this adhesive to whatever surface you are trying to adhere, and then you build it up from there. As you can see, this gun kind of got stopped up there for a second, but once it was unclogged, it moves really fast, and you're able to kind of build up the base without too much work. It's really great. One thing you want to make sure to do as you're building up this wall with the cinder blocks is to wipe off the cinder blocks before you apply the adhesive. If there's a bunch of dirt on the cinder block, then the adhesive won't work. In addition, you want to make sure that you level out each section as you go up. One thing I'll go ahead and note, and I will talk a little bit more about later on in the project, is that for the interior of the oven, you need to use what's called a fire brick. Fire bricks are heat resistant, so they can withstand, I think, up to 2,000 degrees. and not crack. Unlike these conventional cement cinder blocks and cement bricks that will crack if they get exposed to super high temperatures. Fire bricks are much more expensive than standard cement bricks. However, they will withstand the high temperatures, and so it's worth it to spend the extra money to buy fire bricks. You'll see here in just a second what I'm talking about. They look a lot different, and like I said, they withstand temperatures. So find a local dealer that has fire bricks. A lot of the times the big box stores don't sell them. You can order them off the internet, but you likely will have a place in your local town that will sell fire bricks. After finalizing the base of the oven, I went ahead and lined up all the fire bricks on top of the base, and then I constructed a mold out of some 3/4 inch plywood and some spare pieces of wood that would serve as the support for each of the arches that I build throughout the project. In addition, I should note that the refractory mortar that I used is also a heat resistant mortar. You don't want to use just a standard mortar that's made from cement. You want to use something that's heat resistant with a high heat resistant clay or something like that. You can usually buy that in pre-mixed tubs. It's going to be relatively expensive, but in the end it will be worth it. The fire bricks came in two different sizes. Each of them were 4 inches by 9 inches. However, the thickness was different. So one was about 2.5 inches thick, and then the others were, I think, about 1 inch thick. These are the ones that I'm working with right now. I used the thinner ones to construct the actual base of the oven on top of the cement pavers. I didn't build the oven right on top of the cement pavers because I actually wanted to have a base of these fire bricks that would kind of serve as the floor of the oven. Now, the reason I did that is because, once again, the fire that I'll be building on top of this is going to be really hot, and I don't want to build that just right on top of cement pavers because of the heat and the likelihood that the cement pavers will crack in the future. So I would recommend doing something like this so that you have a nice layer of heat resistant bricks or fire bricks that the fire can be built on top of. Also notice that I use a small cement trowel to spread the heat resistant mortar on the base of these bricks, and you almost spread it on just like butter. After that, I went ahead and began the construction of the first arch on the back side of the oven. Now I'll go ahead and note two things about this. One, I made a mistake right off the bat, which I'll fix here in a second in terms of the height of the arch. Then second thing that I'll note is the fact that this is the first time that I've ever done anything like this, so I'm not a professional, and I'm sure some of the folks that are going to be watching this video are professionals, so give me some slack. This is the first time that I've ever done anything like this. But there's a few things that I noticed right off the bat that I can pass off to people that I think would be helpful. One of the things is to make sure that you get all of the air bubbles out of the mortar as you press each brick together. So you kind of want to use a little bit of pressure to push down the brick, and then use your trowel to squeeze out any air bubbles as you add additional mortar to make it nice and smooth over the exterior of the arch. And then you slowly do this and you build up the arch until you have a complete arch. But like I said, I made a mistake and I didn't raise the height of the arch overall. So here in a second I fixed that. All in all, this process is super fun though, and it takes a little bit of tedious attention to applying each of the bricks, but it's pretty easy and it's pretty fun, and I definitely enjoyed it. As you can see here, this is when I realized that I hadn't stepped up the actual arch to the correct height. So I went ahead and laid down 3 additional bricks, one of the half size and then 2 of the full size ones, with the cement mortar. I tipped over the arch that I had made, and then I created a little bit of a base with some extra bricks to set the mold on top of, which will be the process throughout the rest of the oven build. And then I lifted up the arch that I'd made and kind of set it on. Luckily it kind of dried a little bit, so it was super easy. It was an easy fix, but I wanted to make sure to do this so that I had a good amount of space within the oven itself. From there, I went ahead and moved on to the opposite side of the arch to finish its construction. As you can see here, the mold that I created is sitting atop about 8 bricks that are just loose fitted into the space to hold the arch up as I build it, and then while it dries. Then after that, I'll be able to beat out the bricks and remove the mold and use the mold in the construction of the additional arches for the oven build. In the end, the oven has 4 separate arches, and for each of the arches I used this same mold to construct them. And it worked out super well. After finishing the construction of the first arch, I let the arch sit and dry for about 24 hours, and then I came back out and removed the mold, just like how I mentioned before, and it came out really nicely. From there, I went ahead and set up the bricks and the mold to construct the second arch. When you begin the construction of the second arch and every arch thereafter, make sure you cover the sides of the bricks of the arch between the 2 separate arches so that you fill the space and seal up the actual oven. So you'll notice that on the back side of this brick, I made sure to put some of the heat-resistant mortar so that it presses up against the previous arch. One additional tip that I can pass on to everyone who is watching this video is that when you are applying the mortar on the bricks as the arch starts to arch over, is you want to apply a really thick chunk of the mortar on the front side of the brick, or the side of the brick that will be on the outside of the arch. And then on the inside of the arch, there'll be less mortar, and so it kind of will tip the brick into the arch. the beginning of the project, I really took a lot of time to try to smooth out the mortar on the outside of the arches as I applied it in between the bricks. But as I went through the project, I realized that I didn't really need to spend a lot of time making it look pretty and making it all nice and smooth, because I'll be applying a shell of cement mortar on the outside of these arches later on in the project. So what I would recommend is don't spend a ton of time trying to make it look clean and pretty, because you're going to cover it up and it will save you a lot of time in the end if you don't focus so much on making it look smooth and perfect. Once again, once you finish the second arch, go ahead and let the arch dry for at least 24 hours, if not longer, and then you can go ahead and remove the mold and move on to the additional arches. Alright, so this concludes part 1 of this project. Please check out the additional parts that will be posted on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, guys.